All right, good morning, everybody. Looks like our trade plan is going to be pretty easy because it's pretty much the same as yesterday. The one that I put out yesterday night, I mean, not yesterday morning. So the trade plan that we said last night was holding above 70.19, which is around 17 to 20, somewhere around there. We hold above that. We are looking for that extension into 47, possibly 60. Those are some old extension levels from that all-time high. Now, we are entering that area. It's probably easier if I show you on the daily here. We are entering like the top of that range, and you can see every time we get up here, it has pretty aggressive sell pressure that comes in. So holding above 7,000 is a little bit difficult right now. So be careful with that. To the downside, if we hold below that 70.19, obviously we'll look for that rotation back down to 60, and then holding below 60, you have that lower tail that we could squeeze out. So somewhere around like 10, which is kind of like the halfway point, and then around 64, which is that overnight low. All right, pretty much the same story on NASDAQ here, holding above 44. We're going to look for that 114 and 248, a couple of value levels to the upside. Holding below that 944, we are rotating back down to 520. You also could look for like the POC node, so somewhere around like 800 would not be a bad target as well. And then holding below 520, that's where you start to push that lower tail back down to 300, maybe 181. So this is one of those scenarios where I think the actual value low should be somewhere around here, but there wasn't enough value on the high to shift it up, so value low is still where it used to be. So very, very standard micro pullback, pretty much textbook D-shaped profile, looking for rotations until those rotations are obviously broken. Good morning, everybody. Going to the future. Jose, Suzanne, Albazi, Mario, VQ, Leo, Ram, Igor, Lulu. Good morning, Crab, Ken, Nitro, Ollie, Wise, Morris, Greg, Titus. Good morning, Larry, Peter, AT, Trevor, Kosa, Mr. B. Good morning, Stock. Good morning, Tamer, Darius, and Linus. Appreciate you guys being here. Everybody else who's just lurking, hanging out. Appreciate you guys being here as well. We do a little bit of data today, which is after the bell. Actually, we were supposed to, but there is a small government shutdown right now. I forget when it's about to reopen. Let me see. I'm pretty sure it's very short. I think it's like less than a week. Yeah, we were supposed to have data today, but there is a short-term shutdown. It says continues until at least Tuesday, which is today. Yeah, so it shouldn't be much longer. But it is pushing back the data that we were supposed to have today. I think it was like Jolt's data, I believe. Selling off a little bit before the open here. I don't think there's an issue. I think there's just no large orders coming in. Bit of a sell-off on NQ here, but ES is pushing up. Sorry, that was happening a little fast. We were hitting VWAP very quickly here. Reacted almost instantly, failed VWAP on that 16 level. And there is your target, pretty much right on that low. So bear flag into VWAP instantly playing out, hitting the prior low. You didn't quite have it on NASDAQ, kind of just failing the 24 EMA. Delta very bearish on NQ. Back into the FOMC zone here. Keep an eye on 92 for that rotation. SanDisk is absolutely insane. We talked about this when it was around like 300, when it was already exploding. It exploded from like 50 to 300. And it's already at 700. That is ridiculous. That company is really profiting off of the memory shortage. Right now, we are just in that standard micro pullback, possibly trying to retrace yesterday's value. This goes back to what I talked about on the daily. Anything above 7,000 is a little hard to be a buyer because you keep getting slapped back down. A lot of bearish delta on the low of this candle, but not a lot of volume down here, which is okay for a trend like this where it's just pushing right through. But if it hangs out here, if they don't build a node, it's going to come right back. Come right back to that prior node, possibly VWAP. They need to keep pushing here. Good morning, everybody. Ordinary, Mick, Tom, Fernando, Power, Mario, Ike, Roman, Lubmir, Maverick Rider. Good morning, eBay. Good morning, Fable, Lucio, Sam. Appreciate you guys being here. Trying to build a little node here, building a node around 04, not really protecting it too much. Kind of are reclaiming it, kind of allowing the buyers to push back up here. Very different price actions today on NASDAQ and ES. It's actually funny because normally ES is the one that is a bit stickier. It has more liquidity, so it doesn't kind of move around as wide. And then NASDAQ is typically the one that looks like this with all the wicks. And ES is typically like this, where it's pretty smooth. You're getting all the wicks and the wide price action on ES today because there's a lack of liquidity. NASDAQ, very smooth downtrend here, staying below that 80 MA the entire way down. Nasty sell pressure coming in here. Really big bearish block trade, 1,600 contracts. I don't see any direct headlines just yet. Looks like there was a little bit of a wall there at 97, a sell wall getting taken out. Yeah, not seeing any headlines. I just think it's from that block trade. Really large block trade there. So once again, back below that 7K, like I said earlier, that daily range is kind of stalling you out above 7K. Here is that POC node from yesterday. Losing that goes back to that value low, possibly around the 60s. 30-minute highs being protective of the last few candles, so a little bit of a downtrend here. Looks like it's mostly a large cap sell-off. All the smaller sectors are pretty green for the most part, except for consumer services, or commercial, I mean. Thirty-minute trails flipping red here, not yet on ES. Losing that 30-minute trail, pivot on the high. Momentum gave up around 1 p.m., or sorry, 1 a.m. Topped out yesterday before the close. Or actually, that was on Friday, I believe. Let me see. No, that was yesterday. Back into that FOMC range. Single prints, I don't know if we have any single prints in this general area. No, we do not have any single prints near us. We had a ton of single prints on Thursday and Friday. They were filled in. So we don't have any single prints really anywhere nearby. They've been doing a really good job filling in single prints. We had a ton of single prints way back in November, and that's about it. Still no headline from that block trade. There's a Fed talk going on, so it possibly could have been one of the Fed statements. Wall Street Journal put out a few comments as well. Could have been something around that as well. If you had to pick one, I don't know if you call them like organization or whatever, that has like the most insider trading, it seems like it's Wall Street Journal. You always see like massive moves before their big headlines come out. They're the ones that are notorious for like putting out a statement. It creates a massive move before that statement comes out. And then they retract it like a few hours later. They did that a couple of times last year. It's pretty ridiculous. All the levels on the trade plan, like 99% of the time, are on the full session, which is why I don't have a cash profile on the trade plan chart. There is no cash profile on this screen. It's only pre-market and full session. Look at the liquidity here. Level 2 orders, the blue orders coming in just consecutively. We have had a very low liquidity since the FOMC. Before the FOMC, it was doing okay. Keep an eye on VWAP here. Back testing the daily VWAP, not the session VWAP. Still showing that micro pullback value where you have that bell curve, that D shape. Just kind of rotates back and forth. Obviously, this rotation is a little bit bearish leaning with that downtrend. But overall, we are still just kind of stuck inside of yesterday's value. Also on that daily range, anything above 26,000 or above 7,000 are just getting slapped back down. Yeah, previous day's VWAP is a good level. I think we're actually on the previous day VWAP at the moment. We're very close to the weekly VWAP if we come back down as well, which is basically just yesterday for the most part because of it's only Tuesday, right? But a couple of weekly VWAPs around the 80s. Yeah, Wall Street Journal putting out a bunch of statements, so I'm assuming that is why we started moving like that. For some reason, they have a direct line to the big boys trading. Some of the scariest headlines you can see if you're in a trade are from Wall Street Journal. They're not really allowing this rotation here They should have allowed it to go back to like 12, maybe somewhere around that area, 12, 13. But they only allowed it to go back to 9, which is right around that POC. So not allowing that full rotation here, little bearish bias. Metals recovering a little bit. Percentage-wise, it's up quite a bit from the low. Silver up 25% off of that nasty pullback that it had. Still pretty far away from that high, though. Another 25 to 30% from the high. Still establishing lower value here, not allowing it to rotate fully back to that where the value high should be, around 12 to 13. This is very standard for a micro pullback. This one's just breaking a little bit earlier than you would probably expect. We have that near perfect balance right where that POC node is. Just kind of continuing to build that up. And then once they start to pick a direction, it's typically very strong, right? If they continue to lose that POC node, then obviously the direction would be pretty bearish. Possibly retracing fully that secondary move up yesterday. And then the first move up could get retraced as well. Not a great look on the daily. Still showing that there is massive sell pressure up here above 7,000. Also starting to look like a rollover. Not exactly a rollover top, but rolling over in momentum for sure. You could also say this is a sweep here as well. So this move right here is kind of a rollover top, where you have a sweep on this high, then you have a lower high being established if today closes bearish. So not a great look for the daily here. Possibly going down to maybe 900, maybe 800. But we try not to predict the daily too much. FOMC levels being taken out again. Massive sell pressure coming into 90 and 89. Look at the level 2 orders coming in here. There are a lot of statements coming out right now, like Wall Street Journal. What else do we have? Fed talks. Still a very clean trend on NASDAQ, just staying below that ADMA, staying below the 5-minute highs. Just continuing to push down. Another 30-minute open here. Being extremely wide. I already answered that, Albazi. There are no single prints yesterday. I believe you are mistaking the tail for single prints. Or you are looking at pre-market. If you are looking at pre-market, then yes, there are single prints. I do not look at pre-market. I also do not use tails from the A session as single prints. So there are no single prints yesterday, as shown on this chart. If there are single prints, it highlights them yellow. There are no single prints anywhere near us. These are not single prints. The A session cannot be single prints. It is impossible. By design, they cannot be single prints. If you're looking at pre-market, there might be single prints down there. There can be systems that are around treating the A session as if it was a single print zone, like the A session, kind of like the start of the initial balance, possibly needing to be retested if it's a very wide profile like it is today. But that is not the same thing as like filling in a single print. And that theory has been around for a long time. It was a lot stronger many years ago when you would have a very wide A session. Typically, you would say that the afternoon was much more likely to stay inside of that initial balance, stay inside of that A session, then continue to trend and create these like massive candles. But some days like today, the momentum is just so damn strong that it just continues. Large tape extremely bearish today. The only thing holding up in this nasty sell-off here is Apple so far. Everything else is basically straight down. Could be partially due to the carry trade, the difference in the US yields and the Japanese yields coming down quite a bit. As that spread tightens, that Japanese carry trade comes to an end and possibly creates a lot of sell pressure. Dollar also having a very good day today, and the correlation is actually starting to come back. We have a negative 0.94, which means that it's inverse. So if it's close to -1, that means they are nearly exactly inverse. One goes up, the other goes down. So you are seeing that right now with the dollar. The dollar is going up, and equities are going down. The problem with the correlation recently is you can see this white line here. It's just going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth constantly. It's just not maintaining a very strong correlation recently. Whereas a correlation like this, probably hard to see. The Bitcoin correlation right now is pretty good. They are pretty positive. Or about protecting the nodes. I can't go into too much detail because it's very complicated. You would have to watch my Becoming an Apex Trader series. I talk about it quite a bit on the 4th video, I believe. I believe I talk about it in the 5th video as well. But you're basically treating every individual node like we have a node right here. You treat it the same way you would treat a D-shaped profile, where you are looking for those rotations back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, until those rotations are obviously not happening anymore. So for example, right now we are not rotating. They allowed it to go down, they allowed it to go up, it went back down, they did not allow it to go all the way down. So it failed to rotate because it stayed on the POC, the same way a failure to rotate would happen on a D-shaped profile, and then it bounced off that POC. It broke where the value high would be, which would be somewhere around 75, and now we are breaking out into higher value. Now, obviously, that would be higher value if you're only looking at this internal volume profile. But that's basically what you're doing. You're just looking for rotations until they are not rotating anymore. I don't really watch the weekly open unless it's a FOMC week. But during weeks like this, where you have a very obvious distribution going on, then yes, you can watch the weekly opens if you want to. The retrace of yesterday is nearly complete, going back to 60. These value lows are very hard to get exact when you have a very obvious POC node here, but the value low is not really where it should be. Like in my mind, the value low is kind of somewhere around here. But mathematically, technically, it's down here. Same thing with NASDAQ. We've kind of already lost where the value low really is. It's kind of up here. This is more of like the lower tail, and we're starting to retrace that. ADMA still showing a very good resistance here. A lot of bullish delta off the low, but it's mostly just being sold into by limit traders. So like right here, we broke that rotation, pushed up, ran into a level they like to sell, sold it back down. Now we are where it should be bouncing. So if we are putting in a bottom here, if this is a rotation, it needs to bounce here because that's where the value low would be. Which you can see it's trying to bounce there. It's really fighting it. But on that bounce, if they cannot stay above, it's more of a zone, not so much a line. If they can't stay above this POC node, then it would fail to rotate and it would continue back down. Yeah, it's why some people like to use tighter value areas like 50s, 60s, 40, whatever. I personally don't like that because volume profile has been around for such a long time and the levels that people have been using have been the same for a very long time. So that's more of like a personal thing. Using it for more of like probably a scalping sense, lower time frame. Monitoring a smaller profile. But 68% and 70% have been used for a very long time. Yeah, 70 is just the standard. If you want to be more like mathematically correct, the 68 level is the actual standard deviation level. I don't remember off the top of my head what started 70, why 70 became what it was. Because I know 68 was the standard, it was the standard deviation level. Maybe people just like to round up. I just remember when I very first started learning volume profile, the first number that I got used to was 70, so this is what I use. It's hard to play around with the levels when we've seen it happen just so many times over and over and over again, where these levels are tested damn near to the exact tick. So when you see that happen hundreds, if not thousands of times, it's very difficult to try to keep playing around and find something better. Possibly trying to shift the POC down here, but that POC is pretty large. You're only about maybe 50 to 60% there. Yeah, I most likely will. I was thinking about which day I'm gonna recap from last week, and I think that I'm going to recap almost like the week as a whole, not like one single day, because of the weekly open magnet being so aggressively strong last week. And I think it's a good reminder to recap kind of what you can do during these FOMC weeks. So that's most likely what I'll do. I'll probably talk about the 5-minute FOMC strategy, and I'll probably talk about the weekly open strategy as well. Yeah, channel is still growing at pretty much the standard pace that I grow at. I haven't had like really any crazy spikes anytime recently. I typically get about 3,000 to 5,000 subs a year. So the goal for this year would probably be around 25K. If we do more than 25K, then that's just kind of a bonus. 25K as in the total. I don't plan to get 25K this year. Yeah, slow and steady for sure. We really haven't had any like major jumps in subs. It's been a slow, organic grind over the last like 5-6 years. The channel really started popping off during COVID. That was our big spike. And then since then, it's just been very organic. I don't put out a lot of videos, which the YouTube algorithm really likes. It likes videos. It doesn't like live streams. Here is that retrace of yesterday being completed. If we start to hold below these levels, starts to get very ugly at that point, possibly retracing that lower tail back to the overnight levels of yesterday. Yeah, quality over quantity, exactly. That's kind of what I go for. I used to pump out videos like crazy in the beginning, just to kind of build my catalog of videos. But now that I have so many videos, I try to do like a lesson every 3 months or so. We do like a big lesson. So like the Becoming an Apex Trader series, that was our big lesson for last year, like the second half of last year. The first half of last year, we were putting out like all the shorts and the short form videos. Oh, you were referring to subscribers? Yeah, same thing with subscribers as well. I would rather grow very slowly and organically than have like a big surge of 50k subs that don't watch my content, you know what I mean? Keep an eye on that single print zone going back to 77. We're only halfway through that candle, so plenty of time to retrace and repair that, but keep an eye on it. Hey, Jake, that's awesome, man. I appreciate that. I'm glad you enjoy the content, man. Not sure if you're still here. Are you referring to like my view duration? It's actually pretty high. It's much higher than the standard for the most part. YouTube always tells me that it's like, this is the average and like this is how I'm doing. My view duration is, I don't remember exactly what it is, but it's higher than the average. A lot of people don't struggle to finish my content. They're actually watching my content multiple times. Like the Becoming an Apex Trader series. Some people have already watched that like 2-3 times, right? Keep an eye on the 24 EMA here at 77. That's also the same level we just talked about with the single prints. So this is that node that I was talking about earlier. We are trying to rotate. They are trying to establish this as like an accumulation zone. You can see they're kind of ranging here. So if they are actually rotating this, they're not very bearish. They should be going towards the high of that node, which would be somewhere around 77, 80. They're not really allowing that. They keep going up to like 72, 73, and they keep selling that level. So still showing that bearish bias. Also, turning into a capital B here. So we have a major node on the high. We have a major node on the low. So how do you determine bias on a capital B? Capital Bs are always where the secondary node is. So our secondary node is on the low, so we have a bearish bias. That doesn't mean it can't go back up, because what you have to look out for in a capital B is if they keep rotating that lower node and they don't push for a lower tail, it's typically telling you that it wants to retest that higher node. So it tries to push back up and fill in that LVN zone, typically single prints. So you don't want to rotate this lower node for too long because that pushes it back up into the upper node. Yeah, it gets pulled back into VWAP, exactly. Typically, VWAP is around that middle LVN. What's going on, Scott? Wall Street Journal still putting out headlines. They're doing like a live stream or something like that. So a bunch of headlines coming out. Looks like they're trying to shift that POC down to the lower node here. If it does stay above this node here, above 73, you're not only trying to rotate this node, this lower node, you're also trying to repair the single prints, and you're also being pulled back into VWAP. So keep all those levels in mind. So far, really struggling to stay above that node. Trap sellers, yeah, you could say there are trap sellers on the absolute low. There was a large amount of delta that came in, but there's not a lot. You can see the volume fell off very rapidly. Failing the 24 EMA, which is also failing the trail on the 1 minute, if you guys are still looking at the indicators. Still lining up with our daily thesis that above 7K is very hard to be a buyer, and above 26K is very hard to be a buyer. The high of today is 26,027. So it broke by $27 and sold. And now it's down nearly $500 from there. Or 500 points, I should say. ES high of day was also, funny enough, 27. And now we are down about 60 points. Okay, so they're doing one of those things they like to do on single prints that causes a bit of a problem. They went to repair the single prints about 5 to 10 minutes too early. So they bounced up exactly where they needed to, but then they sold off again. So now there should be single prints going back to 77 once this candle closes. Now, once again, as I showed earlier, there are no single prints left open anytime recently. So there is a high likelihood, just based on prior data, right, that those single prints should be filled in before the end of today. At least most of them. Sometimes we do leave a couple open. But very high likelihood they will be repaired before the close. If they are not repaired, then this impulse is very strong. And it most likely will continue possibly tomorrow and Thursday. Looks like they're trying to repair it again here. They are running out of time. 4 minutes left. They need to go back to 77. This buy pressure is most likely coming from the headline talking about how they are putting a bill forward to end the short-term shutdown that we're in. That secondary push down had absolutely no sellers building on the low there. It happened so fast I couldn't really talk about it. But there was a small bull div there. You're already hitting the trail, so the trail is normally the target for those divergences. You had one on NASDAQ as well. You also had a pivot on NASDAQ, so confirmed that bull div there. Look at where we're bouncing. So this is why, even though I don't like those levels too much, I would prefer the value low to be somewhere around there on days like this. I still respect that level, right? You can see that level is still doing its job. You have some buy pressure coming in on that value low area. There's the POC shift. You are nearly retracing all those single prints. Looks like you might have a couple left open. But as I said earlier, even if there is a couple left open, the likelihood they'll be closed before the end of the day is extremely high. The problem with single prints is kind of the same problem that you have with gaps. You know they're going to get filled in. The timing is the problem. Knowing when they're going to get filled in is very hard. Finding the exact trade that is the trade that fills them in. Which is why you never want to treat single prints by themselves as an entry, right? They're not an entry. They're not telling you to instantly go long to fill in the single prints. Now, we have been seeing that a lot recently. You definitely are seeing that more recently, where the next 30-minute candle is filling them in pretty much immediately. But over a long period of time, the single prints by themselves are not an entry. You have to have a reason to fill them in. It's like a gap fill, right? The gap by itself is not telling you to trade back into the gap. You need a reason to go back into the gap. So here is the single print going back to 77. Is it going to be one of those scenarios where it fills it in right away? This is what I was talking about earlier about rotating the node, right? They're kind of allowing it to rotate both sides. You still have a slight bearish bias. They're not really allowing it to get to where it was going earlier, around like 75. So still slightly bearish, staying below that POC. They keep failing to find a lot of sellers as they push away from that POC, looking for that lower value. The trail and the 24 EMA, pretty much essentially the same level, the responsive level, doing a very good job pushing us down today. The first leg down was extremely aggressive, stayed below the 80 EMA pretty much the entire time. But once it starts to establish a node, kind of like an accumulation or a distribution, you start to retest that responsive level. And that's kind of what we did here. We retested the 24 there, retested it here. And they're still pushing us down. Same with the ES, right there, right there. It's another way to tie like volume profile analysis to just very standard price action with like the EMAs. When you're establishing those nodes, you're typically going to be retesting those kind of middle moving averages, somewhere around the 20s, the responsive levels. When you're creating LVNs, you're typically going to be holding below the aggressive averages, typically below like 10, 12, anything below that. Yeah, a lot of seller um, limit orders, which are letting the buyers kind of build delta. Could be somewhat of like a rollover bottom here. You are putting in a higher low after a little bit of a sweep. Problem with this one is you're sitting right on the POC node. So it's more so just a rotation than anything else. Still not showing any buy pressure holding above the responsive levels. The 24 EMA, the trail, the node here. You can see the 24 here just still slapping us back down. If you're looking at the indicators, like I said, pretty much the same level as the trail. They are, funny enough, completely different formula-wise, but they like to line up on that responsive level. So still putting in the trail hit and then Basically back to the low. Trail hit back to the low. There is that value low being finished on NASDAQ and ES, so we are finishing that inside rotation. Now this is where like the actual bearish leg comes in. If he starts nuking this value low and staying below it, you can push this lower tail. Yeah, I saw PayPal was doing pretty bad on like earnings or something like that. They're not too much of a focus, I would say, on most people's watch list nowadays. PayPal kind of they kind of allowed their competition to just take over too much. There's so many competitors came about, especially during COVID. And also the PayPal loophole being closed during COVID definitely hurt their business. There was like a tax loophole, which was technically legal, that you could use PayPal for, that got closed during COVID. Funny enough, in the stimulus bill, that had nothing to do with PayPal or payment services whatsoever. But it was one of those giant government bills that are hundreds of pages long that they try to fill with a bunch of bullshit that they know that people are not going to read. And the PayPal loophole was one of the things they filled it with. So basically the loophole was that if you... I'm trying to say this in like the most legal way possible. Essentially, you could take payment on PayPal, and as long as you didn't break certain thresholds, you were not being reported to the IRS for that income. Essentially, it was almost like a cash system. It was an online cash system that was not being heavily reported. But during COVID, like I said, they stuffed one of those giant bills with a legislation that said any cash payment system, Venmo, Cash App, PayPal, anything, any cash payment system that you are taking more than $600 of payment through must be reported. And they also put the burden on the processors as well, not just on you. So they will report you if you are not reporting it, right? Now, that's probably not exactly true. I'm probably messing up a little bit of the details, but that's the general idea. If you guys remember during the COVID times, by the way, keep an eye on these single prints here. Back to 77, which also lines up with VWAP. If you guys remember during the COVID times, there was a lot of these like online, almost semi-gambling things that were popping up that people were doing. It was big on Facebook. They were doing like bingo things. They were doing like a lot of lottery type games that people were doing just to basically make ends meet so they could survive during COVID. And those all got shut down, right, because of the reporting. Anything over $600, you were being reported. Essentially, pre-COVID, all those cash payment apps were basically treated like cash. If you didn't want to report it, you didn't have to report it. Well, you had to legally, but nobody was enforcing it. And after COVID, they put a bill forward that made it so you can't really do that anymore. Okay, here we go. Like I said earlier, very high likelihood that those single prints would be filled in before the end of today, and there it is. The single prints are filled in, so we do not have any single prints left unless we create new ones. And this goes back to what I was saying earlier about how the single prints themselves are not an entry. The hard part about trading them is finding the entry, finding the reason to go fill them in. And right here, there wasn't really an exact reason. It was mostly just they allowed it to rotate. It kept failing to rotate over and over and over again, failed about 4 times. They finally allowed it to rotate on the 5th time. I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you where these orders are coming from. It's just the ominous they, right? The market. Billions, if not trillions of dollars just being thrown around on a daily and weekly basis. Keep an eye on VWAP here. If this lower node does continue to build up like this, it's going to shift from being a capital B day into a lowercase b day, which can be more bearish because it basically means that they can just protect that lower node and then extend the lower tail, which lines up with countering a P-shaped day because a lowercase b day is the opposite, right? So not quite testing VWAP there. It was mostly just the single prints. You're failing VWAP before getting to it by like a point or so. Nothing crazy. Back into rotation here. Still seeing a very obvious lack in liquidity. You can see my tape is covered in blue orders, meaning that the liquidity from the trade is higher than the liquidity that's showing right here. This is the level 1 liquidity. This means that it's breaking through that liquidity, which we can just do the math. It's very simple. We're only seeing on average like 20 to 30 contracts here, and these orders are coming in for 40, 50, 75, etc. You typically want ES to be above like 50, 60 contracts per tick if you want it to be like sticky, where it's kind of maintaining these levels. If it's trading below 50 to 60 on average, it's getting pretty choppy, I guess you would say, or volatility is increasing. That is your first back test of the trail and the 24 that is actually being respected by the buyers here. Possibly trying to push through the daily VWAP, maybe into the session VWAP. So it's actually hitting VWAP now. This is the daily VWAP. Typically, session VWAP is stronger. It's trying to roll off a VWAP here, but the sellers are pretty weak. They're not holding below the 24 just yet. Starting to lose that 24 now. We'll see if it can make it back to that prior low. You said, what do I think about a trailing stop loss and that the non-realized profit adds onto your drawdown on Apex? Oh, you're talking about like the, not a trailing stop loss, like just generally in trading. You're talking about the trailing drawdown on Apex. I have a controversial opinion about that. I know most people hate it. I know it's a it's a bad thing for most people. It causes them to lose their accounts. But if you guys have been watching the channel for a long time, I was talking about stuff like that before we were even partnered with Apex. I think stuff like that is good for your accounts, like having rules in place that make it so you're not just giving away massive winning trades and turning them into losing trades. I think you need to have some pretty hardcore rules in place that stop you from doing that. Like I said, I've had rules like that for my personal trading before these prop firms even got big and before I even got an affiliate with Apex. So I personally think it's a good thing. Now, can they be a bit oppressive on these prop firms? They definitely can be. They can be a little bit tighter than you would probably have on like your normal trading account. But I think having those as a rule is like a must-have, even if you're trading your personal. The big thing about why I like them is because like if you're in a trade that is up, let's say $500, whatever, just a random number, and let's say your target is $600, so like you're almost at your target. But then like some headline comes out or something crazy happens and it comes right back down. And now you're up like $300, $200, $100. And then you allow that to go all the way to your stop loss. Let's say your stop loss was $250, like a 2-to-1 trade or whatever. So now you not only lost that $200, by the way, here's your conservative target on this VWAP trade. Now you not only lost that $200, which is how most people look at it. Most people look at it and say, oh, I only lost 200. No big deal. That's not how I look at it. I look at it as you just lost $700 because you had $500 that you could have pressed one button and put that in your pocket, and you didn't do that, and you let it come all the way back down, and now you locked in, you took away $200 from your pocket. So you lost $700. So that's how I look at it, right? I think those are good rules to have, even if you're trading your own personal account. You really don't want to allow big winning trades to come back and take a max loss. It's just terrible trading. Now, that doesn't mean if you're up $1, then you should be closing it at break even. But if you're like halfway to your target, 75% to your target, if you're at your target, there is absolutely no world where it's a good idea to allow that to come all the way back and hit your max stop loss. At the bare minimum, you should be taking it off at break even, but you should be taking it off for a partial profit, which is why in my sizing guide videos and pretty much any video I talk about like trading systems, I talk about having multiple exits for that exact reason. Because it takes away that need to be perfect. You don't need to be perfect if you have 2 or 3 exits. You can take a little off here. Like, take this VWAP trade, for example. If you sold VWAP, this is what your conservative target would be, where the high of that range is, that little cluster of candles. So you could take a partial profit here. You could still aim for the aggressive target, like towards the lows, but you're already taking some off the table just in case this puts in a higher low and it starts to threaten that trade. You don't need to be perfect. You've already taken some money off. And if you've taken money off, there's almost no scenario where you should be letting something take a max loss. You've already told yourself that you like this number enough to take profit, why would you then allow it to come all the way back into a max loss? That doesn't make any sense, right? And you'll see that over the long term, taking 100 trades, taking 1,000 trades. Yes, are you taking profit a little early sometimes? Yes, you probably are, right? You're probably cutting your profit a little bit short over the grand scheme of things. But if you put 1,000 trades together, it's going to protect you more than it's going to hurt you. The amount of money that you are losing from cutting your profit a little bit short is going to be a lot better than the amount of money that you are losing when you allow it to come all the way back and hit your max loss. So I think those slightly oppressive trailing drawdown levels on these prop firms, not just Apex, on pretty much every single prop firm, I think they are a good thing in the long term because it teaches you not to do that. It's teaching you the hard way, definitely. They are a little bit more oppressive than they probably should be, but it's teaching you a very good lesson. And what I tell people very often is if you're somebody that is constantly running into these trailing drawdowns on the prop firm and you think that you're just losing because of these prop firm rules, you are the exact kind of person that should not be trading your personal account, because you would be blowing that account up in like less than a week, if you're even lasting a couple of days. So the fact that you're blowing it up on a prop firm account on quote unquote fake money is much better. The 50K one is just called the Apex Sizing Guide. The 250K one I gave like more of a clickbaity title. So it's called like How to Stop Losing Your 250Ks or something like that. I'm probably going to change that title, just make it easier for you guys to find it. But if you type in like 250K, it should come up. If you type in like 50K, it should come up as well. Yeah, long story short, having multiple exits fixes that problem for the most part, and having a rule in place that tells yourself don't allow winning trades to become losing trades, obviously with the caveat of it needs to be close to your target or relatively close, not just like being positive $1. That is a very good rule. That helped me a lot in my trading. That was one of the big steps for me when I was becoming more consistent, is not letting these big trades come back. Trading is really one of the key things in trading is accountability, right? Just being accountable for for your trades, for your actions. And that's why I don't allow people in chat to just come in here and constantly complain and the market's manipulated, Apex, Top Step, whatever funded program is a scam and they're taking my money and blah 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 blah. You guys got to have accountability, right? You're the one pressing the button at the end of the day. And really, it's just as simple as that. I don't really need to go into a long rant. You just need to be accountable for your actions. It's like it's another one of the reasons why I don't show my trades on stream, right? People will just sit here and copy my trades, and if I have a losing trade, they blame me, and it's the end of the world. I'm losing the money, blah, blah, blah. People just got to be accountable. If you're not accountable, if you're constantly making excuses, this kind of goes for like everything in life, not just trading. But if you're constantly blaming somebody else or making excuses, you're never going to grow. You're never going to improve as a person, as a trader, whatever. You're just constantly going to blame something else. Like, oh, I didn't lose that trade because I made a bad decision. I lost that trade because the market's manipulated. I didn't blow my account up in one day because I'm trading terribly. I blew it up in one day because the trailing drawdown rules are too bad. You have to be accountable to grow, right? You got to take accountability for why you're trading poorly. If you don't, you're never going to figure out why you're trading poorly. You're just going to constantly blame something else. I'm just going to delete your message, Sergio, because it just goes against literally what I was just saying. And that goes for like any prop firm, guys, unless they're like clearly a scam. Like we had that one that was I like to use this as an example because I talked about it a lot on stream when it came out. What the hell was it called? Fast track trading, and we made the joke that it was fast track to bankruptcy or something like that. If it's like very clearly a scam, I don't mind you guys like bringing it up, bringing it to our attention. But calling these prop firms that have been around for years scams, I'm just not going to allow it in chat. It's just Reddit brain rot. I'm just so tired of going into this rant over and over again. I'm just going to delete your guys' messages if you talk about it. It literally just goes back into what I just said. If you're calling like these big prop firm scams, you're mostly just doing it because you're losing trades and you need somebody to blame. I'm only partnered with Apex, but there are other big prop firms like Top Step. What are the other big ones? Like My Funded Futures, I think it's called, or something like that. There's a couple of other really big ones that have been around for a few years, and they're very clearly not scams. Like they've been around for years. They've paid out millions and millions of dollars in payouts. People just like to call them scams because they got denied a payout or they lose money trading or they whatever, right? Whatever the 10 excuses you can come up with. So yeah, I'm just not going to allow it anymore. It just brings me back to reading comments on Reddit or some other dog shit social media platform. Like literally just my community alone has probably received over 1 million, if not millions, of dollars in payouts from Apex. So, like I said, calling them a scam is a big stretch. Conservative target on that VWAP trade has been hit. You're still looking for that aggressive target closer to the lows to see if you can get down there, possibly create a new low, possibly go into that lowercase b, extending the lower tail. Yeah, I was talking about it earlier. It's kind of a rollover top in the sense of momentum, not like the exact pattern. But definitely on the higher time frames, it's not looking great for the buyers. They're kind of consecutively losing value. the very last thing I'll say on this rant, and then we'll move on. Keep it on the prior lows here. Is people, this happened a lot during COVID when these prop firms were blowing up, and people were coming into the chat and just constantly saying that all these companies were scams and whatnot. What traders don't seem to understand, or a very small percentage of traders when they're trading these prop firms, is they have to have rules in place that protect them from being scammed by these like trading groups that work together, and they're kind of like lottery groups, almost dollar cost averaging groups, whatever. I'm not gonna go into it too much. But there are a lot of groups that can work together and basically guarantee net positive results. So they have to protect themselves from scam groups, but they also just have to make money, right? If they don't make millions of dollars, they can't pay out millions of dollars. So it's really strange to me that so many traders will complain about these companies having rules in place to make money, but at the same time, they want them to pay out millions of dollars. Like, how does that compute in their brain? How do these companies run if they cannot make money to pay out money? It just logically does not make sense. So just think about that if you guys are ever like, oh, these rules don't make any sense on these prop firms. It is literally a business. It has to make money. If they don't make money, they can't pay you out as a trader. It is that simple. And that's the last thing I'll say on that until the next time we have this rant in a month. Yeah, Maverick, I saw somebody else email me about that. And I assure you, it's not on my end. When you guys send me your details, I send them your email, and then typically within like a day they have it going for you guys. So I'm gonna send them a message today and see what the hell's going on, because it's never taken this long. But I've had like 2 people message me and ask me like, "Hey, when's my student trial gonna show up?" And yeah, I said the same thing. It's like they normally just do it right away. So I'll send them a message today and see what's going on. I'm not sure what the issue is. Maybe they're out of the office or something. But yeah, unfortunately, there's nothing I can do. As long as I send them your email, that is my job in the pipeline, I guess you would say. I just get your email and send it to them. By the way, aggressive target has been hit. So if you took that bear flag in the VWAP, pretty much a standard bear flag in the VWAP. It was the daily VWAP, not the session VWAP, so slightly weaker. But you did hit your conservative target around 67 and your aggressive target on the new low around the mid 50s. When you hit that new low, you did put in a little bit of absorption there. So a lot of bearish delta coming in, but it didn't really go anywhere. So that is a bit of weakness. Yeah, Mauser, it's actually at the bottom of the website. It says like 30 or 40% or something like that. They usually have it somewhere in their like terms and service or something like that. Yes, Carini, that would also be part of the bad variation. So bad variation, you're hitting the daily VWAP instead of the session VWAP, which makes it a little bit worse. And then you're so close to the POC, which we saw right here, which could act like support, which makes it a little bit worse again. Yeah, but that same the same, and like I said, this just goes back. We're not going to argue about this. This is the end of it right here. Um, the same is said by everybody when it comes to like every capitalist country, probably on the world, but mostly in America, right? Where people just say that these companies make too much money and they could be giving more back to their employees and giving more back to XYZ. We're just not here to debate shit like that. You're basically just getting into like the capitalism is bad, like that argument. I'm just not here for it. And I definitely do not want to hear that from traders. Traders are probably some of the most capitalist people on the planet. There's almost no other career that could be put above being a day trader in terms of like capitalism. So if you're trying to be an active day trader and you're also trying to say that capitalism is bad, it's kind of an oxymoron. But all right, on that note, we are going to call it. We are only at 80 likes. If you guys could get that to 100, we will do a Apex account giveaway. If you guys are enjoying the stream, hit that like button. Be sure to subscribe. I do appreciate you guys being here, as always. I will be streaming tomorrow, same time as I always do, around the open. If you guys are in Discord, I will be streaming in Discord for the rest of the day as well. Today is Tuesday. I'm trying to keep that schedule of putting out a recap video every Tuesday. So today, I'm probably going to put out a recap video that's a little bit of a different style. I'm going to be putting out a video that is more so recapping last week. So I'm going to be recapping like the FOMC strategies, basically. Why I have these FOMC levels marked out on my chart. Why we look at the weekly open on FOMC weeks and stuff like that. So it's going to be more so a recap of just like the entire week as opposed to like a recap of a single trading day. So look out for that. That will come out sometime around probably 5 p.m., sometime after the close. Oh crap! Don't worry about it, man. Like I said, I have to have this debate and this argument or rant or whatever you want to call it, literally like every single month. It's the same argument over and over again. It's no big deal. I stand by what I say. I stand by what I said before. Like I said, before I was even an affiliate with these, or I shouldn't say these prop firms. It's literally just Apex. I've been saying the same shit for years. And you guys will come to find out when you watch my stream for longer than a few weeks, I am basically just a broken record. I say the same thing over and over and over again. I don't change my opinions very often. I've been saying the same thing since I started streaming. And I will continue to say the same thing for probably many years. I am very stubborn in that regard. When I set my mind to something, that's usually how I feel. I guess you could call it consistency. And at the end of the day, it's really, really simple. If you don't like a prop firm, there's two things you can do, or I guess three things you could do. You could trade at another prop firm. You could use your own money. Crazy thought. Or you could just not trade. Awesome, guys. I appreciate you getting us above 100. Let me go ahead and get that. Let me get that giveaway ready. All right, we're going to do the same thing we always do. So pick one number between 1 and 50. If you guys are new here, this giveaway is for a free Apex account for 30 days. I'm going to give you a promo code. You can go sign up for any size accounts. You put the promo code in. It will be free for 30 days. Then it will start charging you after that. So you want to go back to the brew code before that starts charging you. Pick one number between 1 and 50, and then have your email ready. If you do win, I will have to confirm your email so I can send you the promo code. If you guys tie, I will do a tiebreaker, so don't worry about tying. So now we are shifting more into a lowercase b profile, which is more bearish in this regard. Basically, when it bounces, you are looking for the sellers to protect the POC or the value high of that node, which in this case is around like 80, which is also VWAP. So basically what happens is the capital B VWAP is typically around the middle of the day. But when you shift more into a lowercase b, VWAP is pushing more to the low side, so it's closer to that lower node. So now if you bounce up and hit VWAP, you're still actually around that lower node instead of being closer to the middle of the day. So a bit more bearish. Bit more bottom heavy, right? All right, I'll give you guys another 30 seconds or so. Pick a number 1 through 50. Just pick one number. Please have your email ready. All right, last chance. Get your number in. I'm going to start rolling. All right, for the first roll, the last number that I see is Rob. It is 14. We do have a 14. I see one right away. I see you, Kevin. Is there anybody else? If you have 14, let me know. I see another 14. Min Cho at 14 as well. And I think that is it. Is it just you two? Does it work outside the US? It does in most countries, not every single country. You'd have to check Apex's website. They have a list of like certain countries they can't do business with, which is basically the same list that the SEC bans. Are you guys still here? Kevin and Min Cho? Let me know. Be ready with your emails. I'll have to pull a tiebreaker first. If you guys are heading out, I appreciate you being here. I will be streaming tomorrow, same time as always. If you guys have not already, if you're new to the channel, be sure to check out the first playlist. If you go to my channel, I have all my playlists kind of stacked together. The first one should be the Becoming an Apex Trader series. And that goes into pretty much every single thing I talk about on stream. If you're confused about any of these topics, volume profile, market profile, single prints, order flow, delta, whatever it may be sure to check that series out. It's a 5-part series, and then there's 5 additional videos if you need a little bit extra on top of that. Kevin, I don't see you. Are you still here? I see Min Cho. So if you don't respond, Kevin, I'm just going to give it to Min. I'm not sure where you guys go when we're doing the giveaway. You guys put your number in and disappear. We had somebody win one of the giveaways, and I couldn't even give them the promo code because they disappeared. All right, Kevin, I'll give you 30 more seconds. If you don't respond, Min is just going to win by default. I'll give you until 11:40. I try to be as fair as possible with these giveaways, but I can't wait all day. Okay, there you are. Okay. All right, so now I need both of you guys to pick a number between 1 and 10. So I'll do a tiebreaker. I'll just keep rolling until one of you guys wins. And have your email ready. Like I said, I can't wait all day, so you have it ready in the next minute or so. Okay, Min has 6. 1 through 10, Kevin. Pick 1 through 10. Okay, Kevin, I'm guessing you have a very large delay. You guys need to double check this. I'll try to remind you before the giveaways, but this makes it much harder when you guys have a massive delay. Now, I think a lot of people just have delays on stream and they don't realize it. When we do these giveaways, or basically at all times, guys, when you're watching a live stream and you want to be live, you need to press that live button. Sometimes you'll be like 60 seconds delayed or whatever, something crazy. So you need to press that live button to make sure you're the most up to date you can be. A way to check your delay, if you right click the video on YouTube, there should be a button called Stats for Nerds. If you press the Stats button, it will tell you how large your delay is. The delay that I have currently, and I'm watching my own stream, is 3 seconds. So you should be somewhere in the realm of like 3 to 10 seconds. 10 seconds would be like the large end. Most people should be around like 5 to 6 seconds delayed. Okay, Kevin, are you live now, or do you still have a massive delay? Because I can't wait a minute for you to respond every time I make a comment. I need you to respond immediately. Yours says 0 seconds. Yeah, it shouldn't say 0. Okay, Kevin, if you're watching live now, pick a number between 1 and 10. And I'll take partial blame for this one because I forgot to remind you guys to do that before the giveaway. But moving forward, I'm going to remind you to press that live button. So if it takes longer than like 30 seconds, I'm just going to move on. All right, Kevin, last chance. You're wasting too much of my time. 1 through 10. It's on the screen. All right, 9. All right, man, what did you choose? You chose 6. Okay, so it's 6 and 9. Okay, 6. We waited all that time and Min won anyway. Min, you are the winner. Are you still here, Min? All right, man, give me 1 second. I'm going to pull up my email. I'm going to need you to send me an email so I can then send you the code. There you go. Send me an email and just let me know what your YouTube name is. And then I will send you a random number. And then just type that random number in chat. It says 5.8 now. Yeah, so you're right around normal. If you're like very close to the YouTube server, it's usually around like 3 to 5 seconds. And then depending on how far you are from the YouTube server, it will go to like 6, 8 seconds. That's why if you're listening to me through Discord, if you guys are Discord members, the best way to listen in the morning is if you hang out in the Discord chat and then you watch the live stream, you're hearing me live. So it might be a little bit weird because you're hearing me live, but then you see it a little delayed on YouTube, and that might be a bit confusing. But if you're just listening to me and you're not like watching the live stream, you can just listen through Discord, and it's 100% live. Min, let me know when you send the email. I'll double check. Another trick is if your stream like buffers a little bit, if you speed it up, you can go to like 1.5 speed or whatever. It will keep you up to date and then it will go back to the normal speed. So it will like speed you up to where it's live and then it will go back. You sent the email? Let me double check here. Awesome, I got you. I'm going to send you a random number. Just type that in chat. I used to have a bot that does these giveaways much faster than what I'm doing right now, but unfortunately, that they updated the bot, and like the new bot wants like full access to your YouTube account, which I'm not giving a random bot. I got you, man. So the next email you'll see is the actual promo code. So now I'm going to send you the promo code, and then you just go sign up for an account like you normally would, and just put the promo code in. But all right, guys, I will be in Discord for the rest of the day. If you guys are not in Discord, I will see you guys tomorrow. As far as our trade plan goes, you are pretty much following that path perfectly. The first stage of the trade plan is complete, where you're rotating yesterday's value, retracing yesterday's value, whatever you want to call it. The second stage is if you stay below that value, you start losing that lower tail. So you start squeezing this lower tail back into the overnight low. So keep an eye on that. All right, guys, I'll see you in Discord. If you're not there, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace, everybody.